Welcome, everyone. It's Matt, and today we're going to talk about the dynamic water analysis. We're going to do a tier list on all the water types, and this is for July 15th, 16th of 2025. Let's get her done. First, we're going to start with Gigantamax Lapras. I'm putting in a water category, even though it can't really officially attack with water, more because I kind of want to put it in here as ice is kind of a weak element to go through. Lapras can only be in its Gmax form. Its IVs is 1435 through 1509. 1509 is your hundo. It has more weaknesses than strengths. Lapras takes increased damage from electric, fighting, grass, and rock, and it's 60% additional damage. Electric, grass, and fighting are kind of common, so I'm not a huge fan of these weaknesses. The Lapras does take reduced water or damage from water 37%, 37.5%, and ice at with only 39% damage being taken. And honestly, Lapras is probably the best ice type tank that we have right now, and is a pretty solid water tank. Its stats: fairly low attack, middling defense, and very high HP. It has fast attacks. I put it in there because generally we're going to be using the water gun. It is our 0.5-second move. It is Gigantamax, so it will have Gmax resonance. And when we do fight Lapras, which we will be fighting this week, you can see the video up top here. It does have Ice Beam and Blizzard as charge moves, along with Hydro Pump and Surf for water, a Dragon move, and a normal move as well. The water move, though, is the most dangerous as it can be spammed, is Surf. Lapras, I'm not going to put the ice here, but it does kind of follow very similar as well. Water, we have Attacker. It is our weakest attacker in general for water types. And in general, we do know that water types tend to be very weak in attack, but we do have some pretty high attacks as well. So it kind of covers the entire spectrum. For defense tankiness, it is slightly above average for the being a water tank. And as a healer, it does very, very well, but it is not the best healer anymore in water. We have a new contender there. And in general, Lapras can tank. I probably will be knocking it down sooner rather than later, but right now I still have it in a usable tank form for Lapras. But my big concern with it being as a tank is it just has a lot of resistances and only one very strong element, ice, and one okay element, which is water. Next is Squirtle. Squirtle was one of our first Dynamaxes. Actually, it was our first water. Squirtle IVs 497 to 540. 540 is your CP, is for your hundo. Squirtle takes increased damage from only electric and grass, and takes reduced damage from fire, ice, steel, and water. Those are all very solid elements to be resistant to. With Blastoise, and here I have the Mega Blastoise as the picture here. The Blastoise evolution, we have Squirtle to Wartortle to Blastoise, which takes 125 candy, and we do have 200 Mega Energy to turn Blastoise into a Mega Blastoise as well. And that's only for the regular Gmaxes do not Mega Transform, but Dynamaxes can. You can Mega Transform, but you can't then use them in Dynamax battles if you do so. Blastoise and Gigantamax Blastoise have the exact same strengths and weaknesses as Squirtle, but the Blastoise stats, we have 171 attack, which is, I would say, a little below average still. Very good defense at 207, and stamina just on the low end, but still average at 188. Blastoise, though, is really useful because it does have 2 fast attacks, Bite and Water Gun. Both of them are incredibly solid. We also have a rock at 1.5 seconds, and unfortunately, what's weird is our only rock capable units are our 2 water types. So for some strange reason, water type is our only rock Dynamax form transformations that we can use. So for most of the time, for Dynamax, we're going to be using Water Gun. If you are using your Gmax, you can use Bite or Water Gun, depending on what the battle is for overall. Gmax Blastoise will always be using Water type. Dmax will be using your Element. If we are ever fighting it, it does have 5 different charge moves. Honestly, it does not hit very hard, and with all the Pokemon that we have now, it is not that dangerous. Blastoise as an attacker, it is 2 out of 10 for Dmax, and it's just a little bit below average, even with Gmax. That's how low of an attack it is, but it is our best tank. And it is our best tank by defense overall. I'll be honest, there's going to be another Pokemon at some point that we're going to go over that overall is just a better tank, but doesn't reduce damage as much as Blastoise. So from that standpoint, it does take the top. And its HP is just a little bit below normal, and that's why its healer is down where it is as well. Next, we have Kubfu. Kubfu itself is not a water unit, but it can be upgraded to Urshifu, which will have a water type as well. So Kubfu, though, initially is weak to Fairy, Flying, and Psychic, and takes reduced damage from Bug, Dark, and Rock. But it is much more interesting to talk about Rapid Strike Urshifu. Rapid Strike Urshifu is a very interesting unit, water and dark type. Rapid Strike does have a pretty large weaknesses with Electric, Fairy, Flying, Grass, and Psychic. Takes 60% more damage, but it's 37.5 damage reduced to even a larger amount of Bug, Dark, Fire, Ice, Rock, Steel, and Water. Its attack is pretty good at 254, and its defense at 177 and HP of 225 makes it actually usable-ish during the normal, and can be used as a emergency tank, especially if you have to use it as a damaging unit during the transformation. But its fast attacks are poor. Fighting and water here, we have Waterfall as our fast attack at 1 second. That is the best one that we're probably going to use for water. And it does have a fighting move as well at 1 second. But the 1 second move does hurt it a great deal. It does have charge moves, but that is not that important for 5-star and 6-star. But it can use water or fighting moves as well. As an attacker and tank, it is an 8 out of 10. And a healer, it is on the better side as well. Overall, its stats are pretty even across the board, which does make it potentially useful, but its 1 second attacks do hurt it quite a bit. As an attacker, though, it is still quite a good attacker. It is not as good as our next couple of Pokemon that are coming up, but in general, it's still very solid. As a tank, it also acts very solidly. And a healer, it's just okay. Next is Krabby, and I'm going to be honest, Krabby is probably my favorite water unit right now. Its IV is 835 to 892. 892 is the hundo. Krabby takes increased damage from electric and grass, and takes reduced damage from fire, ice, steel, and water with 37.5% reduction in damage. Going to Kingler. Kingler's stats are 240 attack, 181 defense, and 146 HP. Its attack and defense, especially as a Gmax, as it does have a Gmax form, are very, very powerful in general. We've only had the Gmax attack once, but it is still quite useful and potentially can be kind of the tank that I usually use overall, just because it does have good attack power. I could throw up a shield or two and throw out a damaging attack as well. Kingler, going from Krabby to Kingler, only takes 50 candy, and the Gmax, as I say, is a very powerful but not the strongest Pokemon for water. What I do really, really like for the fast attacks is for Kingler. As a Gmax, you can use Metal Claw, which is a 0.5 second move, or Mud Shot. But the main issue with Mud Shot, it does require an elite fast TM, or at least not until we get another Kingler event where you can learn that quickly. But you're only going to want to use that for Gigantamax. So really, that just leaves, if you need to have a Gigantamax Mud Shot, you have to use an elite TM, which is expensive and a very pay to win feature there. But Metal Claw itself is very useful, and as a Gmax, just a reminder, if you use Metal Claw, you will still attack with water. For D-Max, though, you're pretty much stuck with Bubble because it is just a water type Pokemon. It does have 3 water attacks, a bug, and a normal, but the bug attack is actually, and the Razor Shell water can be spammed. It does hit hard, but for the D-Max version, it is a very weak version, and for Kingler, for the G-Max, it was one of the easier ones because it had such a low HP. All right. Dynamax and Gigantamax Kingler. As an attacker, D-Max Kingler is kind of, for me, a 7 out of 10, and a G-Max is a 9 out of 10. It is the second best water attack right now that we have. Probably will continue to have. As a tank, I have it rated out of 8 out of 10, but it does require shields to be able to be used. So not every trainer is going to like to use Kingler. But the reason I like Kingler is it generally has enough defense, and with the shields, it will be able to withstand the damage fairly easy, and you can throw out pretty hard attacks in general. But it is the worst water healer, as its HP is really, really poor. Next, we have our strong point, Dynamax Sobble and Intelleon. Sobble's IV, if you're going for D-Max, is 579 to 627, 627 being the hundo. Sobble does take increased damage from electric and grass, and reduced damage from fire, ice, steel, and water. Intelleon is the same. If you're doing a G-Max, Dynamax, it takes 125 candy. G-Max, it is obviously turning into the sniper. It is still water type, has the same strengths and weaknesses, but its stats at 262 attack, it is rivaling Gengar in strength, and it will be eclipsed by Eternamax if we do get to use it, but it is still a very strong water type, and there are some very good uses that we're going to need to use Intelleon over some of the others. So it is something that I highly suggest if you have a G-Max that you're going to want to level up. Its defense and stamina, though, or HP, are both on the lower end of the side. This is a glass cannon, and unlike Gengar that has some really high resistances and some unique ability to take damage and tank, Intelleon is only designed for high attack, but luckily it does have a very high attack. Its fast moves, which honestly aren't a big importance, they're both 5.5 seconds. You're going to be using Water Gun for Dynamax, and honestly for G-Max Intelleon, you're also going to be using Water Gun because you're going to want to be using the water and to get the same type ability bonus. And if you fight Intelleon for G-Max, you do have to be careful of Surf. Surf is definitely something that it can spam. For Dynamax and G-Max Intelleon, the attacker is top notch. D-Max Intelleon's a 9 out of 10, and Gigantamax Intelleon is the highest that we have right now. As a tank and healer, it's 3 out of 3, but we do have worse tanks and we do have worst healers. One of the worst tanks is coming up, and one of the worst healers was Kingler. Finally, we have Dynamax Waillord. This is the newest Dynamax Pokemon that we currently have. By the time that we have upload this video, Kabuto still will not be out. Wailmer's IV is 779 to 838. 838 is the hundo that you are looking for. It is, once again, weak to electric and grass, like all the other water types. And one of the interesting things is water tends to be very mono elemental. We don't have that many multi-elements like we did for a lot of other elements, and so they all generally tend to have the same strengths and weaknesses. Wailmer takes reduced damage from fire, ice, steel, and water. It transfers into Dynamax Waillord. Waillord is also still water, so it takes the same weaknesses and strengths as Wailmer. One of the big issues, or a whale of an issue, if you would say, is it takes 400 candy to do the evolution. And what you get is an inverse Blissey, where the attack is slightly below average and the defense is well below average, where Blissey is very below average in attack and slightly below average on defense, and it has a very high stamina HP. So overall, it does do a very good job in healing. Its fast moves, we have Water Gun. That's what you're going to use. It is the only other unit that does have a rock. It's psychic. You're not going to be using it to be fighting as psychic very often, but one of the interesting things with Waillord, and I'll talk about later, is that it will attack stronger than Blissey, and it may turn into my main healer, even though it is not the strongest healer in the game, which is obviously Blissey. Its charge moves definitely are not going to be used because Waillord just doesn't have any defense. Finally, here are the rankings. As an attacker, it's a 3 out of 10 in the water category, partially because water has really strong attacks. As a tank, it's really poor. And as a healer for water, it is by far the best healer. It's even better than Lapras. And honestly, we have two types of healers that I will talk about just a little later. And they both have uses. Both are niche, unfortunately, but they both have uses. As an attacker, it's still weak, Wailord, 2 out of 10. Maybe it is a 3 out of 10, and I'm treating it pretty harshly. It is a 1 out of 10 as a tank, and it is our second best healer. And personally, I prefer Wailord a little bit more than Blissey, and here's why. It has twice the attack of Blissey. It is not my tank. It is not a damage sponge, but as a healer, it's more useful because most Pokemon can only be healed twice by Wailord and Blissey before it starts really overhealing, and you're going to want to attack once. Wailord definitely has the ability to at least attack almost 100% more on its one transformation attack compared to Blissey. And if it is the same type of, if you're using water, it's 120%. And if it's a 60% damage on top of it, you're talking almost 200%. So it will act as it like it got to attack twice compared to a Blissey. And the healing that you lose isn't very, very large. I may do a video talking more about that later, but right now, I do see Wailord as actually probably the most useful healer right now. And I really should do a video on that later. For the damage capability of water, we have a pretty large list. I actually kind of had to use some. Right now, it's getting so large that it's getting really hard to fit in one page. But Lapras is our weakest water unit officially, and soon it will actually drop off this because it's so weak. Blastoise is the main one that does have a transformation move for water. Compared to Gmax and Intelleon, it is basically 100 to 135% stronger in its attack in overall. And right now, Intelleon is by far the best damage capability for water. Kingler and Intelleon, though, there is a small difference, but overall, those are going to be really the two that you're going to focus on the most. Urshifu Rapid is not really all that useful for an attack. And honestly, I would rather be doing single strike Urshifu as we do have uses, but it's such a hard sell for the amount of candy that you need. Generally, I only highly suggest that you, even if you have a Dynamax, only Dynamax, Kingler, and Urshifu Rapid, I still suggest Dynamax Kingler as it is much easier just to level up than Urshifu Rapid. Now, we're going to do something a little different here. We're going to take a look at the water elemental damage and what is it useful for. Right now, water elemental damage is not useful against dragon, grass, or water. Obviously, water will be strong against water, and the other two kind of make sense. It does kind of stink that water elemental is weak against dragons, as you tend to see a lot of dragons, and I do expect us to be fighting a lot more DMAX and GMAX dragons very soon. But it does have good strength against rock, ground, and fire. Some of the optimal Pokemon that we're going to be attacking with water, and all of these are double weak, so they take 156% more damage, is Colossal, and obviously its evolutions. Primal Groudon, and only Primal Groudon, Camerupt, Golem, and Onix. These five are pretty much the main Pokemon that do have 150% or 156% weakness with water, and are going to be something that we're definitely going to be targeting for overall. Honestly, even then, some of the ones that are rock ground also tend to have weaknesses to rock as well. Now, for the overall top two water units for each of the roles. For attacker, it's pretty simple. It is going to be Intelleon and Kingler, both first Gmax, then Dmax. So those are actually your top four. For me, though, as an attacker and defender, Kingler does take the roost. It is second on both. It does a very good job. For stuff that I've been using with water that maybe like a fire type Pokemon, Kingler does do a very good job of both taking damage and dishing it out. The best defender overall is Blastoise. It does have by far the highest defense, but there are a lot of other Pokemon in the game that do have higher defense. And finally, for healer, we have two good healers for water, both Waillord and Lapras. Waillord, if I get enough candy, I will invest in, but I don't really stick with healers very often. I prefer using shields and attacks over healing. To me, that just feels more efficient overall. Lapras is actually a good ice tank that can also heal, while Wailord is much more of a I'm going to put this in to heal twice and then deal one set of damage, and it can deal decent damage with water and okay damage with psychic and rock. And honestly, it's going to be really the only rock attacker other than Blastoise that we have, at least until August, when we hope to see a rock unit that can actually use rock as a fast move in Dynamax, as we're pretty sure that Gmax is Eternatus. And with that, we have completed a revisit to our water tier rankings. And with that, if you did like this episode and you would like to see more, please like and subscribe. You can also comment down below. On top of this, I do have a Discord, so you could check my community page for the Discord. And I also have a Twitch, twitch.tv/madguru. If you're interested in seeing my files that I use, I will be putting that on a paid tier on Patreon. You also, if you'd like to be at the end of my videos, be part of my community, and the paid community members will always be thanked at the end of videos, along with the paid Patreons. So with that, that's all I'm really going to go through. And as always, I will try to do better next time. You all have a good day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.